and welcome back to Gandy Slays. For 18 years, today's guest has stood at the front of a classroom teaching the fundamentals of how to navigate the world to our youngest minds. But while she was teaching the alphabet and arithmetic, she was sensing a completely different language, one written in frequency, intuition, and the invisible threads that connect us all. She's a healer of 10 years who calls herself a political connection stylist. She doesn't just look at your spirit, she looks at how your energy voted to be in the room, how you negotiate with your own trauma, and how your style connections to the people around you. She knew she was different long before she had the words for it, and has spent a decade bridging the gap between the physical structure of the schoolhouse and the infinite expanse of the spiritual realm. Today we're going to talk about the politics of the soul, the burden of sensing what others ignore, and the reality of being a multidimensional being in a three-dimensional world. Welcome to the show, Annie, and tell us, how does a woman who spent nearly 2 decades in the structured world of elementary education reconcile that with the fluid, often chaotic world of the spiritual healing?
Hi, Gandhi. Hi, everyone. This is a very interesting question, and I will start like this. All of these things for me are interconnected. They are not opposites, they are coexisting. We just fail to observe how they are intertwined and how they interact with each other. So the 3D world, the world of form, and the unseen are not only coexisting, but they also have common ground. They feed each other and they affect each other in every possible and impossible way. We are just not trained enough to observe it. But if we manage to observe closely, we can clearly see it.
Okay. And can you break that down a little bit more for me and explain like what you mean by being able to observe and sense these feelings and emotions?
Yeah. First of all, we are conditioned in many ways and very meticulously, if I may say, to be really focused on what we can quickly perceive and without any effort perceive through our 5 senses. So we get too attached to only the things that we see or hear or sense through our senses. And we believe that those things are the absolute truth, which is not real. And if you want proof for that, I have a very easy example. Our senses are affected by our feelings. Feelings are not material. They do not belong in the 3D world. They do not materialize on their own, but they affect our senses, our body, our experience, even our health.
I know, like when my grandfather was diagnosed with leukemia, the doctors were like telling us that it's kind of mind over matter, and like if you try to tell yourself that you don't have it, that would help him recover, and it might help along in the process of like retraining his cells to grow and maybe help with like the leukemia disappearing. So is that kind of like along the lines of like what you're discussing, or?
Actually, it's something similar to that. It's
Okay.
not about denial of the
Okay.
condition. You have to accept what is happening in your body or your reality in order to be able to affect it. When you're in denial, you detach yourself from reality. So if we are talking about a physical condition, something that has already materialized in the body, you have to make peace with that and the symptoms that it comes with. And then you can affect the symptoms and the cause, because the root cause is always non-material.
Yeah. So
There's no such thing as psychosomatic diseases and only somatic diseases. Everything is psychosomatic because human beings are psychosomatic beings.
can you explain like what the difference between like psychosomatic and uh, non-psychosomatic? I'm sorry, you said psychosomatic and well, I forget the other word. Non.
Yeah, actually, for me, there's only psychosomatic.
Okay.
There's no such thing as just somatic symptoms, because when a symptom is appearing, there's a reason for that. There's a root cause behind that. Our body is talking and it's giving messages and information to us all the time, but we are not trained to understand that language of communication our body uses. So, up to a point, when feelings get stored in our material bodies, symptoms appear. And then we are forced to listen to the body because of the discomfort the disease or the symptoms are causing us. So everything is psychosomatic because it is being presented, it is appearing first in the ethereal body, in the energetic field, you name it, however you want to call it, and then after pretty long time it materializes and appears in the body. But if we learn to understand the language of our feelings, or also known as the astral body, or if we manage to understand our thought patterns and how they affect our lives, then we don't have to get sick in order to pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah, I really liked when we were doing our interview how you were saying that there's no such thing as the unknown, because like everyone knows what they're getting into. Like you might sense it or just let it go. Not 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, we always know what we're walking into. I just like I want to kind of expand on that and like discuss that a little bit because that was really intriguing to me, and I've been telling everybody since we talked about that. Like I literally ran downstairs to my mom and told her how excited I was to learn this new thing.
Yeah, that's true. There's no such thing as the unknown because we are creating our lives constantly with our choices, our point of view, and our actions. So there's a triangle of manifestation or creation, if I may say: thought, feeling, action, consequences. So there's no such thing as unknown. And all the times we get entangled into shitty situations, we know it from the beginning. We just ignore the signals, the symptoms, the red flags. For instance, when we get into a relationship and it ends up being really unpleasant, not even abusive, unpleasant or misaligned, or not such a good option for us. I bet we all know that from the beginning. But our need to be in a relationship, it's bigger than our, how to say it, our patience
Yeah,
to
I can agree
observe
with
the signs.
that.
Yeah, this is a very universal example. This is why I brought it up. And the same applies with our health conditions. Of course, we are all going to die one day. So we will die somehow. But what we are building along the way while we're alive depends on our choices. So there's no such thing as the unknown. If you're not feeling your feelings and you're suppressing them, then you will have a serious health condition at some point in your life. It might be cancer or an autoimmune disease, but you had it coming. You can't pretend that you weren't aware of it. There's no such thing as the unknown. Nothing happens by chance. We are co-creating.
I think it's beautiful. I can totally relate to that, just because I've been telling people, I just got out of a very bad relationship with my significant other, and I feel like from the beginning of the relationship, I knew that it was going to be a bad relationship. Like, I saw the red flags, and I still was just like, well, I mean, he's a good guy, I think, and he makes me feel pretty, and he makes me feel good. So I'm just gonna stay with him and wait it out to see if what happens. 4 or 5 years later, now we're breaking up because of those same red flags. And if I would have just listened to my gut from the start, then maybe I could have found somebody else that I actually didn't have the red flags with. So
Yeah, I think this is inevitable. We all know what we're getting ourselves into. And it's very important to be conscious. So it's a whole different story, a whole different decision, and a whole different outcome if you see clearly that, hey, this is not going to be the best relationship ever, but at the moment, I really want to get in a relationship, and this is something I would like to experience. But I'm not lying to myself.
Yeah.
So I step into that fully conscious that it might not be the best thing ever. And therefore, I do not get too attached. I'm very mindful that maybe very soon things might get ugly and I will have to gently remove myself of the equation. But if I step into the relationship thinking that it's going to be the love of my life, although red flags are all over the place,
Yeah.
then I will end up disappointed. And I do not really know if disappointment is about the bad relationship, which is not totally bad because you can learn things from it. Of course, it's up to you again. You can just let it go, or you can learn your lesson. It's our choice. When we learn the lesson, then we don't have to repeat the cycle. But if we do not learn the lesson, we are most likely repeating the cycles over and over again. We've seen it happening all around us.
Mhm. So I guess my question to you would be, like, how do we pick up on these red flags and not repeat the cycle again?
Okay, this is a cool question. And it's not that simple, actually, because those decisions are not only conscious. Our subconscious mind and our conditioning orchestrates 95% of our decisions and therefore 95% of our lives. So you can see the red flags, but you can still choose the person because your subconscious conditioning is aligned with that choice. And subconscious conditioning means that you're choosing familiarity over happiness. Our subconscious mind, our nervous system doesn't care if we are happy or not. It only cares if we are alive and safe, and that's enough.
It's true. That is true.
So it's not it's not that simple. It requires inner work. This is why we have healing or therapy or whatever you want to do, whatever you choose for yourself. And then you can break those patterns because you have access to them.
And are these patterns, not patterns, are these, like when it comes to picking up on the patterns and stuff, is it more of like, because I'm trying to like figure out how to like, I guess, break the cycle. So would the patterns be more so like a visual, like do you think it's like a visual thing? I know you said it's sometimes more subconscious, but like how are we able to like make it more foundational for ourselves to be able to pick up on these things and move forward?
Okay. This is actually the kind of work I do with my clients. It's not just healing the pattern or disrupting the cycle. It's also a form of psychoeducation so that you grow more and more aware of how you function, which are your trigger points, and how you can respond to them instead of being reactive. When you're reactive, they decide your fate practically. Your triggers decide your fate. But when you can take a step back and take your time to respond to the trigger, then you are really the creator of your life.
But that's absolutely beautiful. So can you give us maybe like another scenario or situation maybe that like where somebody responds maybe in a more so positive way to a trigger or um, a pattern, and how an ideal scenario would play out if they went about it in a
Yeah.
positive manner?
Mhm. A very common trigger for many people is anger. It's a very triggering emotion because anger only appears when our boundaries are trespassed. And if you have experienced many boundary violations while you were growing up in the name of love and protection by your caregivers, then it is so confused with love and safety that you have to do a handful of inner work to understand that lack of boundaries is not love. So then you can feel the anger rising when someone tries to violate your boundaries, but you do not get drifted away. You can feel the feeling, you don't identify with it, therefore you can respond. You detach yourself from your feeling and you understand that some boundaries are needed in this situation. So it's much more, it's wiser, it's easier for you. You don't spend much energy to do it because anger requires a lot of energy. It's an internal explosion.
Yeah, I that's something that I still need to work on. I hate to admit it, but and my therapist has told me in the past that I get addicted to anger. So that is something that I'm still working on. So I really enjoy that we're kind of discussing this right now because it's helping to like fortify a lot of the things that I'm learning in therapy.
Yeah, anger is a very interesting emotion and it's easy to feel it because we mostly freeze or neglect or reject our emotions, especially the unpleasant ones. The bad news is that you minimize also your pleasant emotions, because emotions are a capacity. Feeling your feelings, feeling your emotions is a skill. You cannot feel only the pleasant ones but stop feeling the unpleasant ones. There's no such thing. So you either freeze your capability of feeling, or you feel them all. So anger is a pretty easy emotion to get in touch with, because it's really explosive and penetrative, and it's a curtain emotion. It hides other emotions underneath. It's not an emotion, really. Anger and anxiety are not clear emotions.
I really like how you said that learning your emotion, like expressing your emotions, is a skill. Because it's something, you're correct, like it's something that you have to build upon and learn to understand and learn how to process these emotions and figure them out. So since you've been doing this show for so long, like, what would you say would be the best way to go about learning how to pick up on these skills, like the skill set with your emotions, and um, expressing them? Like, what? I guess what I'm saying is, like, the best way to cope with them, and how to facilitate expressing your emotions in the proper way.
Actually, it's not the easiest thing to do, because we're not trained in that direction. We are very, very well trained to silence ourselves. So it requires a bit of work and healing all those strings attached that make you a puppet. Because if you have no feelings, no emotions, then you're not a human being. You're a shell. You're a puppet. And it's very convenient to be a puppet, you know? You will not live a full life. You will be always compromising, but it's numbly convenient, because you have no external conflicts. Many people believe that expressing their emotions and feelings can create friction in their relationships, but this is not true. When we express our feelings from a place of authenticity, then communication is gentle. And if the other person cannot handle that much, then so be it. Do you really want this person in your life if you cannot be really authentic around them? So a good first step would be to observe the feeling and name it internally. What am I feeling right now? Just regular check-ins with yourself until you're able to acknowledge your feelings and your emotions. Because this is another interesting topic. You can go around and ask your friends, your family, any, not just adult, but even adolescents, um, are not really sure what they're feeling. Children know what they're feeling, adolescents kind of losing it, and adults are totally unaware. So if you want to startle someone, just ask them, how do you feel right now? What's the most intense feeling that you're feeling right now? And observe their reactions. Most of the adults are clueless. You will receive answers such as, let me think about it, which is like, whoa, will you think what you're feeling?
Yeah.
You
So then,
can't do that.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So then you don't even know what you're feeling at that time. Like if you have to think about it, then I feel like you're kind of manifesting a feeling that isn't even there.
Yeah. So checking in with yourself is the best way to start this practice. But I would recommend also inner work. Find your guide, your healer, your therapist, someone that is aligned with you, someone you have good chemistry and good connection with, and start working on yourself because you're the most important person in your life. Everyone else could come and go, but you are stuck with yourself until the day you die. You have to make this relationship work.
And what would you recommend the best way? Like if somebody doesn't feel comfortable with like a therapist or even a healer like you, what are some things that maybe they can do on their own, uh, other than checking in with themselves? Or is there like a technique that you recommend? Or um,
Actually, um, there's no such thing as working on myself, really. That's a lie. It's an illusion. And if you ever encounter a healer or a therapist that claims to work on themselves, just run away. Do yourself a favor because this is the hugest red flag of all. I've been a healer for the past decade and I've been in my personal healing journey for more than 15 years. And I'm sure that in order to be a good healer, you have to sit on the chair of the receiver. Otherwise, you're clueless who you're serving, how these people are feeling. You have never walked in their shoes. And also, you risk to be trapped in your ego in so many ways, like you know it all. And if you really want to do some serious work on yourself, you have to bend your ego to someone else. You cannot you cannot heal your trauma. You cannot get in touch with hard experiences that you have experienced in your life and be the giver and the receiver, the guide and the receiver at the same time. There's no such thing. That's an illusion. Otherwise, you're just doing superficial work. So self-help books, forget it. It's informational, but it's not healing. It's not therapy. You can't replace serious inner work with just reading a bunch of stuff.
so if I'm understanding correctly, like what you're saying is you kind of have to serve another person in order to heal yourself because having someone else's experiences helps you grow it, helps you grow.
Let me let me rephrase that because it might not be very clear. Um, you need a guide because you have so many unknown places, places that you have never explored inside yourself. So you need a guide, someone who makes you feel safe, someone who can see you and witness you without judging you. And the same applies to every human being. It doesn't matter if you're a healer or a therapist yourself, you're still a human. And if you don't do your own inner work, your own therapy, your own healing, then you risk projecting your own experiences or your own conditioning to the people that are coming to you for help. for guidance.
Okay, I think I understand now. So we all need a spiritual or a mental guide
Yeah,
to,
exactly.
to help us get through this. That's so cool. And I was just wondering too, like, so I know we discussed too that you said that as you were growing up that you've always been able to sense or were in touch with your intuition. I guess my question would be like, how do you feel like that's been able to guide you and bring you to becoming a healer?
I was born like that. First of all, my intuition was always activated. I was silenced about 10 billion times because I was making people around me uncomfortable. And I was a child, and children are very spontaneous and authentic. And for me, it was something super normal. So I couldn't understand why they were freaking out. But since they were freaking out, I kept the information to myself. Um, After many, many years, when I was an adult, the whole thing evolved within me, and I found a way to share only the unbothering stuff, the politically correct stuff. um, so it went better. I stopped freaking people out. And then I understood that I have a huge untapped potential. This is why I began my own healing journey. And I became a healer by accident. I never meant to become a healer. My first healer kept prompting me to get trained to become a healer myself because he was thinking I would be an exquisite healer. And I went to the first healing training out of curiosity just because I love playing and experimenting and trying new things out. And the rest is history. Then things started falling into place on their own. I never tried really hard to to be a healer professionally. It just happened.
That's so cool. And I guess like, what does it mean to be a healer to you?
Well, to be a healer means to be blessed to experience a thousand lifetimes in one incarnation. Yeah, this is the truth because if I wasn't a healer, I would have only experienced my own life. But being a healer gives me the chance to walk alongside other human beings and draw wisdom and understanding for the human experience from their own lives. It gives me a chance to rewrite their own stories and also to rewrite the history of humanity.
It's so cool. I love it. So, what would you recommend, I guess, to somebody who is on their own spiritual journey? They're even trying to find a healer. Like, where do you find a healer?
Where do you find a healer? That's a good question. First of all, um, you can search, I guess, on the internet and try out a few clarity calls with some people. I'm not only a healer, by the way, I'm also a mental health expert. So I started with therapy and counseling, but it was somehow rigid and superficial for me because it's just on the mind. So I went to the alternative techniques also, and then I crafted my own technique, bridging the two, like the Western mental health with the Eastern philosophies and healing techniques, because I really love fast, sustainable results. So I will never recommend to anyone trying something that I wouldn't love trying out myself. So you can search the internet, you can try out some clarity calls, and it might be a cliche, but you will know it when it's your person. And always be open to questions. Like, ask them if they are supervised. They should be supervised. If they are doing their own healing or therapy sessions, they should do their own sessions. If they are training themselves, it's important that we are getting trained and learning new things. So you can be open and watch their reactions. Someone that stands in their own integrity will answer every question that you have with clarity and respect, because they understand that this is an intimate human relationship and you have to trust them before you commit to this relationship.
Yeah, I know my favorite thing to do when I get like into a new relationship or trying out like a new therapist or mentor that I'm reaching out to, I like them to give me their background story first before anything else. Like, if I don't know anything about you, I'm not feeling comfortable to talk to you about mine. So I try to always do that first and then go from there. Like, if it seems like they're comfortable enough to expose that to me, then we could work on this. But if they decide not to, this is a no-go. And I can't work with you. So I know that's always a good step, at least for me, to try to figure out if it's going to work out or not. I guess, like, what you use the term as a political connection stylist, and I know most people think of politics as government, but you seem to view it as a power play of energy. How do we style our energy to survive the system we live in?
Oh, okay. Now we are risking staying here for almost 3 years talking about that subject. Actually, again, everything is interconnected, so there's no such thing as the system and ourselves. We are connected. We are part of the system. And if you really want to change the system, please do yourself a favor and do not go to war with the system. Just adjust yourself, change yourself, be who you want to be, and then the system will follow because you will inspire others along the way. And system is a collective thing, whether it's a family, whether it's society, whether it's any group you belong to, you're a part of. When you're shifting, the whole system will shift. So there's no extra effort. If you do the inner work, if you take care of yourself, if you're evolving yourself, then every system you're a part of will follow your evolution. It's natural. Many people that attend healing sessions witness a huge change in their relationship with their parents, their paternal family, their friends, their romantic relationships, because the dynamics is changing.
So when the dynamics change, does that mean like does that show like a sign of growth with the dynamics changing, or is that like how do you know that you're prospering within your internal growth?
Well, you change. This is why the dynamics is changing. But you know if you're happy with the results of your inner work. You know because you're calmer, you feel happier, you stand on your own 2 feet and you understand what's best for you. And maybe some relationships or some people will fall off naturally. This is natural, okay? Like the leaves of the trees in autumn. But some relationships that have real potential will follow along your evolution. So one version of the relationship will end and another one will emerge. And this is very common.
So when a relationship is prospering or like doing well, I guess what are some things you recommend to do so that it continues to grow? Like if this is something that somebody is like committed into and it's going well, like what are some tips, I guess, you would recommend so that it continues to stay on good terms?
That's a tricky question. If the relationship has real foundations, then working on yourself would be propelling your relationship forward. But if the relationship is superficial with no real foundations, then anything could cause a rupture. The slightest change, which will happen eventually, whether you're working on yourself or not, like life is constant change. So things will change. So a relationship is really prospering when the foundation is steady and it's not threatened by changes that are naturally happening in our lives. If you want one tip, it would be clear communication, but again, it's tricky.
So when you work with a client, what is the most common political lie that they tell themselves to keep from healing?
What is the most common?
Mhm. But what's the most common lie that people tend to tell themselves to keep from healing?
There's not just one lie, it's a pattern.
Okay.
The biggest enemy of your healing, of your evolution, is your ego because it causes resistance. It doesn't want you to change. Because remember, those parts of yourself want familiarity. They will choose familiarity over happiness. Familiarity is translated in your system as safety. So your ego, your subconscious mind, your nervous system will always choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. This is the enemy of healing. And the enemy of your happiness, of course. It's not like a lie you consciously tell to yourself. There's no such thing. Everything that hinders your healing or your therapy evolution is subconscious. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. This is a clear indication that you should do it. If there's resistance, you should do it. Because resistance is only appearing and emerging when real growth is taking place. Otherwise, resistance is not triggered at all. Okay, this obsession that is very present in the healing world about us being only love and light and stuff like that is not real, of course, because we are human beings and our entire existence and our world here is organized around duality. So when there's light, there's also darkness. Actually, light is easy. Everything that is out in the light, in the open, is already known and conquered. And if we stand a chance to really evolve and grow and learn more about ourselves and how we function, then we have to step in the darkness, which is not, I wouldn't say it isn't pretty or it is not easy. It's not familiar. Again, it's not familiar. Not many people go there because it's unexplored territory and they prefer to circle around in their light instead of tapping into their darkness. But this is where our true potential lies. It's like going to school. If you stay constantly in the light, it's like going to school, repeating the same grade over and over again and expecting to learn something new. This will never happen. You have to go to the next grade in order to upgrade. This is why it's called upgrading, and learn new things. This is darkness, unexplored territory. And there's limitless darkness in our existence. You can keep exploring your darkness as long as you're alive on this planet. I don't know if you're familiar with Irving Yalom. Um, He's an existential psychotherapist and he has also written many, many books. And I think he's 96 years old and he's still doing his therapy sessions. Although he's so experienced and so old, and he's still learning new things about himself. This is what I'm talking about. We're limitless beings, and if you want to reach your limitlessness, then roll up your sleeves, take yourself seriously, and do the work. After a while, when you have healed and understood the first heavy things that are troubling you, healing will be your playground because you start creating things and you start creating your reality up to a point that other people around you are shocked in a good way. This is very interesting. Again, everything is interconnected. Healing requires teaching, and teaching requires healing. And it's very interesting that you're bringing this up because I had the same conversation today with a friend. Uh, because I love trauma. Yeah, I love trauma healing, trauma work so much. And I was saying we have the means to rewrite every trauma. And this is not part of the curriculum in our educational system. That's a shame. We only care about reading and writing and doing the maths, but we do not care about existential stuff that are crucial for a human being's evolution. So I think if we manage to do that, in 10 years from now, we could be experiencing heaven on earth. Okay, let me fall into that because every time it's something different. Okay, yeah. I think the one for today would be something like don't mind if you do not love yourself yet, because this is an indication that you do not really know yourself. You cannot love anyone that you do not really know.